going over some different evidence of evolution, that evolution actually takes place. And we're going to look at the anatomy. We're going to compare the anatomy of different organisms. And the first one we got here, they're called homologous structures. Homologous. These are structures that have similar structures, but have evolved to have different functions or different jobs. And this is evidence that we had a common ancestor. So you can look here. Here is a human arm. It's got the humerus. It's got the radius and the ulna, the carpals, the metacarpals, and then 5 phalanges. Now compare that to a cat. You know, if we're not related to a cat at all, why do we have such similar bone structures? So this is a cat's front limb or front leg. He's also got a humerus, got a radius and an ulna, just like us. Metacarpals, carpals. And wow, it's just kind of a junk down here. Here's the front pectoral fin of a whale. Once again, it's got a humerus, a radius, and ulna. It's got carpals, metacarpals, and 1, 2, 3, 4 phalanges. Now, but these have different functions. Like our arm is really designed to grab things, throw things, hold on to things, write, eat. A cat, you know, obviously for scratching and running and, I don't know, jumping. A whale's pectoral fin is for swimming. And then here we got a bat. A bat is also a mammal. And look, he's also got a very small humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phalanges. So then we got for grabbing things, holding on to things, running, jumping, scratching, swimming, and obviously a bat's wing is for flying. So these are structures that have the same basic arrangement of the bones, but they have evolved to have different functions: flying, swimming, running, holding on to things. So that's a piece of evidence for evolution. It's evidence that we all shared a common ancestor, and then we all branched off in our own different directions, our own different species. We just did homologous structures. This is like the opposite. So homologous structures they have similar bone structures, but they evolved to have different functions: holding on to things, running, flying, swimming, etc. Now these are analogous structures. And these are evidence they're not closely related. So homologous structures were evidence that that were very closely related. Those were all mammals on the homologous structure. Where this, we have the wing of a bird and then the wing of an insect. So this is evidence of what's called convergent evolution. So these are two things that are not closely related, but they evolved structures that have the same function. So the bird's wing, birds are more closely related to us. They have a humerus, a radius, and ulna. And then you can see it kind of differs here because we're not that closely related to birds, but closer than we are to insects. So these are two things that have the same function for flying, but they have there's no bones in an insect wing. It's made of keratin. It's made of proteins. You know, where this does have bone structure and muscles, where this is basically just a protein. So they're not the same structure, but they do have the same function. So it shows that these guys evolved in a similar path to get the same trait or same adaptation of flying, but they're not closely related. So it's convergent. So they're not closely related, but they evolved functions that are very, very similar. All right, so analogous, these are things that are different in structure, same in function. Homologous, similar in structure, but different function or job. All right, the last little anatomical features we're going to be looking at. So we had homologous, then we had analogous. Now we have what's called vestigial structures. These are structures that are still present, but they have no apparent function. There's no reason for them to still be there. So for example, right here we have a whale. And if you zoom in right here, you can see that whales still possess a pelvis and the upper leg bone, the femur. Well, why do they have that? Whales do not have legs. They don't even have anal fins back here. They have a caudal fin, but they don't have fins in this area. So there's no reason to have leg bones. That's evidence that these guys right here, these whales, they're mammals. They used to live on land. Now they've lost their legs, but the leg bones, the femur and the pelvis still remains. So that showed that they once had legs and they've evolved to lose their legs because they were not necessary in the ocean. Some other examples, Snakes also still have leg bones. They're descendants of other amphibians and other reptiles that did have legs, but they evolved to lose their legs, but they still have the leg bones. Humans, we still have our tailbone, our coccyx. Why do we have a tailbone if we don't have tails? That's evidence that we once had a tail, but we've lost it through evolution. Also, our appendix. It's a little tiny little organ that's located on your large intestines that doesn't serve a purpose, but it's an old organ. When we used to be able to eat leaves, you can still eat leaves all you want, but it's fiber. We cannot digest grass and leaves like cows can, goats can. They can still do it because they still have that complex digestive system that can break down cellulose or fiber. Where us, the appendix, that used to be the organ that stored special bacteria that allowed us to digest and get nutrition, get energy from like grass and leaves and things like that. We could still eat them, but we get no calories from it. Also, goosebumps. When you get cold, you get goosebumps. Well, why? The goosebumps, that's where when we used to have body hair, the goosebumps would make that hair stand straight up. And if it's cold, when your hair is standing up around your whole body, it provides insulation. It keeps you warmer. Also, if like some sort of animal scares you, the hair stands up. It makes you look bigger, and hopefully the animal that's maybe going to try to eat you will think better about it because you look a little bigger when your hair is standing up. So these are structures that are still present, but don't have any useful purpose today. But that's evidence that they once did have a purpose. Because why would we have an appendix? Why would we have a tailbone unless we once needed those things? And we've evolved to not need them. All right, thank you very much.